Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Munmun Bhattacharya. Coming up in the next hour. Majority of 90 countries at Ukraine Peace Summit sign a declaration in Switzerland that focuses on nuclear and food safety, prisoner exchange and return of Ukrainian children and civilians. India says peaceful resolution requires a sincere and practical engagement between the two parties to the conflict. Kremlin says Putin is not ruling out talks with Ukraine, but wants guarantees to ensure, in fact, their credibility. India's Home Minister chairs a high-level review meeting on the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir and New Delhi, days after a terror attack in Riyasi. And India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar inaugurates Prerna Sthal, an earmarked area inside Parliament House complex where statues of great leaders and freedom fighters are kept for paying tributes. The two-day Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland has concluded, marking significant progress towards a peaceful resolution. With over 90 countries signing the declaration, the summit's outcome lays out a possible roadmap for a peaceful resolution, but it lacks unanimity and was agreed in a summit where Russia was not invited. Here are the details.
The Ukraine Peace Summit in Switzerland has successfully concluded with over 90 countries signing the final declaration. Swiss President Viola Amherd presented the key points of the communiqué, emphasizing the importance of the safe use of nuclear power, the protection of shipping navigation routes, and the return of unlawfully displaced children and detained civilians.
We have managed to agree on a common vision here on the Bürgenstock. We have set out that vision in the Bürgenstock communiqué. Herewith we are sending a clear signal to the people of Ukraine and to all those directly affected by the consequences of the war. A large part of the international community has the desire to bring change.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky praised the support from Western and other leaders at the summit, highlighting that this collective effort underscores the potential to restore the rule of international law.
That we can achieve results as soon as possible. And it is exactly these and other similar practical steps to restore security and peace that will prove to everyone in the world that the UN Charter can be restored to full effectiveness. All the principles and purposes of the UN Charter. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini.
Meanwhile, Russia has expressed its willingness to engage in talks with Ukraine. However, it stressed the necessity of guarantees to ensure the credibility and seriousness of any forthcoming negotiations.
Putin is not rejecting anything. He's not rejecting the possibility of talks. He says there are legitimate bodies there in accordance with the country's constitution, who is authorized to conduct negotiations, etc. Negotiations, as a rule, are conducted by expert people, but the results of negotiations are recorded by legitimate. Agreements on paper are the fruit of very complex expert negotiations, a balance of interests, and of course, taking into account the realities on the ground. And this will be the case this time as well.
As the summit comes to an end, the international community remains hopeful that these declarations and commitments will pave the way for lasting peace and stability in the region. With Bureau Inputs, Amish Mahajan's report for DD India.
India participated in the Switzerland-hosted summit on peace in Ukraine on the 15th and 16th of this month. India's Ministry of External Affairs Secretary West Pavan Kapoor represented India at the summit. India did not associate itself with any communique or document resulting from the summit. At the summit, India emphasized on a peaceful resolution to the conflict through dialogue and diplomacy. India pitched for sincere and practical engagement between both the parties to the conflict, calling it essential for achieving a resolution. India said it is committed to engaging with all stakeholders and both parties involved, contributing earnestly towards achieving an early and abiding peace. Meanwhile, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan has dismissed the peace proposal presented by Russian President Vladimir Putin as unreasonable, saying meeting Moscow's demands would make Kiev even more vulnerable to further aggression. Sullivan noted that Kiev would also be bound to disarm under the Russian proposal so that it is vulnerable to future Russian aggression down the road. He added that no responsible nation can say that this is a reasonable basis for peace, as it defies the UN Charter, basic morality, and even basic common sense. DT India's correspondent Dasha Chernyshova is now live from Moscow. Dasha, what do you make of Kremlin's statement now that the summit has come out with a communique?
Well, certainly the Kremlin is making it clear once again that its offer is still on the table, even though the Ukrainian authorities and the West have dismissed them, saying that the proposal of Russian President Vladimir Putin to withdraw Ukrainian troops from the entire territory of four regions that Russia now claims as its own, and Ukraine says they belong to Ukraine, was denied and described as the call for capitulation. Moscow still says that it is possible to negotiate with Ukraine, and that proposal is a peace initiative. We also heard the Kremlin saying that every time that Russian President Vladimir Putin is making a peace proposal or a proposal that is trying to bring this conflict back to the political and diplomatic track, it takes into account the realities on the ground. And from the point of view of Moscow, at this point, the reality on the ground suggests that Moscow has the upper hand. That is going to change even more in Russia's favor, according to Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov. It will be even worse for Ukraine if they reject it at this point. And also, we understand that Moscow has many concerns with regards to the legitimacy of the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, saying that his mandate has expired. But the problem is not with whom negotiate. Moscow will, one way or another, will still be able to find the party that will actually be signing the document with Russia, and then it will still be legitimate.
Dasha, also many countries agreed on the communique in Switzerland, but many didn't. It says peace requires a dialogue between all parties. As I said, there's no unanimity still. Another conference we hear could take place in Saudi Arabia later. Russia and Ukraine don't even agree on how to start talks between them. So do you expect any forward movement anytime soon?
Certainly the understanding in Moscow is that any conference that is supposed to bring this conflict back to the political and diplomatic track should be taken into account Russia's interests. Russia says those are legitimate interests of Russia. And given the very fact that President Putin also noted that the world is close to the point of no return, the hope is that any conference that will be involving Russia's participation and that will not be based on the Western formula or Vladimir Zelensky formula, but instead will be taking into account Russia's concerns, such as the provisions of Russia's goals in the operation in Ukraine, then it would certainly be helping to improve the diplomatic track for this conflict. But as things stand now, it doesn't seem to be the case, with Russia spending more of its budget on the military needs and the Western countries pledging more financial and military aid to Ukraine.
We'll leave it at that. Dasha reporting from Moscow. Russian special forces freed 2 prison guards and shot dead 6 inmates linked to the Islamic State militant group who had taken them hostage at a detention center in the southern city of Rostov on Sunday. According to Russian state media, some of the men had been convicted of terrorism offences and were accused of affiliation with the Islamic State militant group, which claimed responsibility for a deadly attack on a Moscow concert hall in March. The hostage takers are from Russia's southern republic of Ingushetia, and 3 of them had been detained in 2022 for planning an attack on a court in another Russian republic, Karachay-Cherkessia. The Democratic Republic of Congo has received nearly 700,000 doses of a new malaria vaccine to help control and eradicate the tropical disease. The vaccine was developed by the Serum Institute of India and will be administered to children between the age group of 6 to 23 months, starting later this year. DD India's correspondent Chris Okamringa has more from Kinshasa.
A consignment of vaccines against the leading killer disease in the Democratic Republic of Congo arrives in Kinshasa. The R21 Matrix M vaccine was developed by India's Serum Institute to help prevent malaria deaths in children. Studies have shown it to be 75% effective. Many senior Congolese officials were excited to receive them.
We are here to receive a vaccine against malaria for the first time. As you know, malaria is one of the biggest causes of mortality, especially among our children and grandchildren. They are the ones paying the heavy price.
Malaria is spread by a bite of an infected mosquito. The DRC is reported to have the second highest number of malaria deaths globally. The country recorded over 24,000 deaths last year. Most of them were among children under the age of 5. The vaccine was approved by the World Health Organization in October last year.
I think this vaccine will be a real game changer in terms of preventing malaria. As you know, DRC is one of the 11 what you call high burden malaria countries around the world. Given the size of a country in terms of land size and population, DRC is really when we think this vaccine can make a difference.
Congolese authorities plan to roll out the vaccine later this year, but they'll have to convince many parents who are skeptical about vaccines due to misinformation spread during the COVID-19 pandemic.
This is a tried and true product. We know the effects of malaria. We know what that will do to the people here and especially to children. So when there is a reliable product that can reduce the mortality and the impact of this disease, I would say, you know, the malaria is a far greater, they should be far more afraid of malaria than the vaccine.
Figures from health organizations show that sub-Saharan Africa has suffered the most from malaria, accounting for 90% of cases and deaths annually. Health officials in the DRC are optimistic about reducing and eventually eradicating malaria in their country with the arrival of the vaccines from India. But that will depend on the uptake of the vaccines by the population, which has in the past been hesitant to get their children vaccinated against killer diseases. Chris Ochamringa in Kinshasa, reporting for DD India.
We'll take a breather on DD India News Hour. Still to come, UK opinion polls point to electoral extinction, quote-unquote, for Prime Minister Sunak's Conservatives. 14 Jordanians dead and 17 missing during Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia. And Singapore closes coastal parks as oil slick spreads.
Voice of a rising aspirational world. Stories of challenges, struggles and accomplishment. A world battling conflict, hunger and poverty. Embracing growth, development, science and technology. A voice of progress, a voice of unity. Watch Voice of the Global South with me, Akshay Dongre, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. The United Nations has welcomed the Israeli military's decision, which announced daily tactical pauses in southern Gaza to allow humanitarian aid to flow into the region. Meanwhile, Hamas responded positively to a US ceasefire proposal, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reaffirmed his commitment to defeating Hamas. But protests continue in Tel Aviv, calling for the release of hostages and criticizing the government as well.
The Israeli military has announced tactical pauses in its operations in southern Gaza. These pauses are designed to allow more humanitarian aid into the enclave, addressing the severe humanitarian crisis highlighted by international aid organizations. The pauses will occur from 5 in the morning till 4 in the evening daily along the route from Kerem Shalom crossing to the Salah al-Din road and then northwards. Meanwhile, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh announced that the group's response to the latest Gaza ceasefire proposal aligns with the plan put forward by US President Joe Biden. Speaking on Eid al-Adha, Haniyeh expressed Hamas's readiness for a comprehensive deal involving a ceasefire, withdrawal from Gaza, reconstruction efforts, and a swap of Israeli hostages for Palestinian prisoners. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reiterated his pledge to defeat Hamas and secure the return of Israeli hostages. His comments came shortly after 8 Israeli soldiers were killed in southern Gaza, intensifying the conflict. The soldiers, all members of a combat engineering unit, were in an armoured carrier that was hit by an explosion.
Despite the heavy staggering cost, we must stick to the goals of the war. The destruction of Hamas military and governmental capabilities, the return of all our hostages, ensuring that Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel, and the safe return of our residents to their homes, both in the north and in the south.
In Tel Aviv, tens of thousands of protesters rallied on Saturday, calling for the release of hostages and expressing dissatisfaction with the government's handling of the conflict. These groups often merged, blocking roads in the city to amplify their message. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Sarah Coates now joins us from Tel Aviv. Sarah, what are we hearing from the army about this decision after Netanyahu claimed he did not authorize it?
Hello there. Well, the Southern Command has come out speaking against Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that it was in line, this decision, with Netanyahu's instructions to get more aid into the Gaza Strip. Now, it's also being reported here in Hebrew media that Netanyahu just told a cabinet meeting that we have a country with an army, not an army with a country. So if indeed this is the case, this certainly points to growing divisions between the Israeli establishment and also the military. Now, we've also heard from the far right wing here in Israel speaking about this decision, calling it delusional. The far right National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, he posted on X that whoever decided on a tactical truce, especially at a time when there are so many soldiers that have fallen, is evil and a fool and should not continue in his position. Now, at the same time, separately, Itamar Ben-Gvir has also instructed the Israeli police force not to arrest any Israeli demonstrators who've been blocking aid from going into the Gaza Strip. So certainly this has created somewhat of a political storm here in Israel. And it does remain unclear at this hour whether this corridor, this tactical pause is actually giving way for any aid to come into the Strip.
Right. Also, Sarah, how likely is a hostage and a ceasefire deal then between Israel and Hamas?
It certainly doesn't really appear to be too likely at this stage. You do need to remember what we have been hearing from both sides. Hamas has been saying that it won't accept anything but a full comprehensive ceasefire, and also with the withdrawal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip. And this is certainly something that the Israeli establishment simply will not accept. We've heard it from the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu time and time again that there will be no truce that leaves Hamas in power in the Gaza Strip. And it was only 2 days ago that we also heard from the US President Joe Biden. He came out to say that he doesn't expect to see a deal in the near future, although he is hopeful that there may be one. Now, beginning this morning, there's a week of disruption here in Israel. People blocking roads, other disruptive means, calling on the government to do a deal now to get these remaining 116 hostages out of the Gaza Strip. Also calling for elections to be held now and for Benjamin Netanyahu to step down. So certainly a lot of division being felt here right across the country.
We'll leave it at that. Thanks for joining us, Sarah. In the UK, 3 opinion polls released late on Saturday presented a grim picture for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party, and one pollster warned that the party faced electoral extinction in the July 4 election. The polls come just over halfway through the election campaign after a week in which both the Conservatives and Labour set out their manifestos and shortly before voters begin to receive postal ballots. Rishi Sunak surprised many in his own party by announcing an early election on the 22nd of May against widespread expectations that he would wait until later in the year to allow more time for living standards to recover after the highest inflation in 40 years. In the United States, a shooter opened fire at a splash pad in Detroit suburb, leaving 9 people injured, including 2 children and their mother on Saturday. According to authorities, the suspect, tracked by law enforcement to a home, was found dead by a self-inflicted gunshot. Authorities initially believed that at least 10 people were afflicted by gunshot wounds during the Rochester Hills shooting. However, the number was later revised and authorities consulted with the hospitals in the area. 14 Jordanians have been reported dead during the annual Muslim Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia, some of them due to heat stroke, while 17 others were reported missing. The Jordanian Foreign Ministry, in a statement on Sunday, said that at least 6 of the fatalities were heat-related, with temperatures predicted to reach 47 degrees Celsius in Mecca on Monday. The Hajj, which will end on Wednesday, is one of the largest mass gatherings in the world, with more than 1.8 million pilgrims expected to take part this year. The Jordanian Foreign Ministry was coordinating with Saudi Arabian authorities on procedures to bury or transport the bodies of the deceased according to their families' wishes. Desertification and drought, especially in Nigeria's northeast region, is leading to migration of cattle herders to areas where the pasture is lush. This has led to conflict between crop farmers and herders over the battle for land, leading to deaths and reduced food production. Climatologists are seeking policies such as ranching for herders as a way out of the situation. DD India's Tessa Makende reports from Josh in Nigeria.
Herder Abdul Bello is out with his cattle on the outskirts of Jos for pasture. He relocated from Bauchi in the country's northeast due to encroaching desertification and drought.
This is our source of livelihood, raising cows and selling them. Here in Plateau State, it rains well, so there is good pasture for cattle. In other parts of the country, especially in the far north, cows just die due to lack of water for them to drink and hunger.
Bello is among thousands of herders who are now grazing in Nigeria's north-central states like Plateau and Benue. having migrated from the northeast Sahel region. It has triggered eco-related conflicts between them and crop farmers in host communities.
The plants don't get to mature to their full capacity before the rain stops. So one of the key problems that we have faced here is, of course, the issue of the drought, basically caused by climate change and, of course, land degradation, leading to shortage of rainfall.
According to the country's House of Representatives, over 60,000 lives have been lost due to clashes between farmers and herders since 2001. This has jeopardized food production, leading to soaring food prices and hunger. Climate experts say solutions exist.
We can actually encourage herders to see how they can get the best of their herds by keeping them in one place, and then, of course, feeding them better, and then getting the resources out of their herds, such as milk and meat that they can use into creating various other products.
The government has warned that herders face arrest if they let their cattle stray into farms. The president has also called on state governors, who are statutorily the custodians of land, to make it available for herders to graze on in a way that won't lead to conflict between farmers. Some governors have instituted a ban on open grazing, calling on private investments in ranches for cattle herding. But other states are yet to do so, leaving herders like Abdul Bello to search for pasture for their cows. Tassim Akende in Jos, reporting for DD India.
Let's take a look now at other stories making news around the world. German police shot a person who threatened officers with a pickaxe and an incendiary device during a Euro 2024 fan parade in Hamburg's St. Pauli district on Sunday. The attacker is receiving medical care and a major police operation is underway. The incident occurred as Poland and the Netherlands prepared to play in Hamburg's Fulls Park Stadium. Singapore closed several coastal parks due to an oil spill from a collision between a dredger and a bunker vessel on Sunday. Authorities intensified cleanup efforts as oil reached shores including Sentosa, Labrador Nature Reserve, Southern Islands, Marina, South Pier and East Coast Park. Visitors expressed concerns about the environmental impact and strong chemical smell. UN General Assembly President Denis Francis urged South Sudanese leaders to expedite the 2018 peace agreement during his 4-day visit. Meeting with President Salva Kiir, Francis emphasized the agreement's potential to end violence and promote development. He pledged support for South Sudan's transitional unity government in preparing for the first ever general elections in December. Time for another breather on the DD India News Hour. Coming up in a bit, analysis on Government of India's plan of action to improve the security situation in Jammu and Kashmir. And the first ever documentary film bazaar inaugurated at the Mumbai International Film Festival. Also, India's President and Vice President greet fellow citizens on the eve of Eid-uz-Zuha. Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. A recap of the headlines. Majority of 90 countries at Ukraine Peace Summit signed declaration in Switzerland that focuses on nuclear and food security, prisoner exchange and return of Ukrainian children and civilians. India says peaceful resolution requires sincere and practical engagement between the two parties to the conflict. Kremlin says Putin is not ruling out talks with Ukraine but wants guarantees to ensure their credibility. India's Home Minister chairs high-level review meeting on security situation in Jammu and Kashmir in New Delhi days after a terror attack in Reasi. And India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar inaugurates Prerna Sthal, an earmarked area inside the Parliament House complex where statues of great leaders and freedom fighters are kept for paying tributes. Well, back home, India's Home Minister Amit Shah chaired a high-level review meeting on the security scenario in Jammu and Kashmir in New Delhi today. The Home Minister directed agencies to replicate the successes achieved in Kashmir Valley through Area Domination Plan and Zero Terror Plan in the Jammu Division. The government is committed to set an example by cracking down on terrorists through innovative means. The Home Minister directed all agencies to work in mission mode and ensure quick response in a coordinated manner. Reiterating zero tolerance policy against terrorism under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister said that the government will leave no stone unturned in rooting out terrorism from Jammu and Kashmir. The meeting was attended by India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, the Lieutenant Governor of J&K Manoj Sinha, Chief of Army Staff General Manoj Pandey, Union Home Secretary, the Director of Intelligence Bureau, senior Army officers including Chief of Army Staff Designate, Lieutenant General Upendra Dwivedi, Director General of the Central Armed Paramilitary Forces, Chief Secretary and DGP of J&K, among other senior officers. And we are now joined for analysis by Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain, a former commander of Indian Army's Srinagar 15 Corps. He has a 40-year-long illustrious career, having served in turbulent environment and hotspots, including Jammu and Kashmir. General Hasnain, such a pleasure to have you on News Hour on DD India. It's been a week, we know, since Indian pilgrims were killed in a terror attack in Reasi in Jammu. Now, PM had done a review meeting of the security situation in the UT on Wednesday. What, in your view, are the challenges in Jammu region that need to be addressed?
Thank you, Aman. Thank you for inviting me for your program. Yes, there have been very serious developments in the last few days in Jammu and Kashmir, and particularly in Jammu. And we've seen the Prime Minister's directions that full spectrum capability is what should be executed by the armed forces, by the security forces. And in today's meeting, the Honorable Home Minister has also again reiterated the aspect of zero terror and replicating the success of what has been achieved in Kashmir. So whatever is happening at the moment is essentially in the Jammu division south of the Pir Panjal. Now the main challenges here, first of all, unlike Kashmir, the focus here has not been so much on the neutralization of the networks which have existed in both Jammu and Kashmir. This is primarily because there was a comparatively lower degree of violence in the Jammu division in the last 15 years, although many sleeper agents, many networks of this kind continue to persist here. But the focus remained on Srinagar, on Kashmir. Now, obviously, it's important to neutralize these various networks. Secondly, infiltration will have to be controlled from the international border, because from the international border it is very comparatively much simpler to infiltrate, reach the road, the main road from Jammu to Pathankot, and then the scope for movement becomes that much more enhanced. There is also the need, because of broken ground, jungle terrain, the Pir Panjal, to stretch from Poonch all the way to Reasi, which is close to almost 200 kilometers. This entire area needs prophylactic operations to make sure that the various hideouts which exist in these in the mountainous terrain, in the rocky outcrops, are all destroyed and they are not allowed to be used by the terrorists. A very important aspect which we will have to consider in the next month and a half to 2 months is the Amarnath Yatra, which is starting on the 29th of June. Now, this yatra essentially is in Kashmir, but the infrastructure for it, the security for it is all provided from Jammu onwards right up to the holy shrine. This aspect in the Jammu area will also have to be ensured to make sure that there is very, very deep security all along the route of the Amarnath Yatra. Of course, one of the other important aspects is to neutralize the overground workers and to reach out to the Gujar population which exists in this area in the same manner and with the same energy with which the outreach to the people of Jammu of Kashmir had been done in the last 4-5 years. I think these are some of the challenges. If addressed, we will be in a far better position to be able to tackle this problem.
Right, General Hasnain, we heard from the Government of India. It said that the security situation has improved in the Kashmir Valley and the same should be replicated in the Jammu division as well, which is what you also said. But how was that achieved? How was a significant reduction in terror incidents achieved in the Kashmir Valley? Did the abrogation of Article 370 had a role there too?
You see, Munman, the issue is that the counter-terrorist grid in the Kashmir Valley has traditionally been much stronger. There is a greater presence of the Rashtra Rifles. There are more CRPF units there. The Jammu and Kashmir police is far more, is better deployed, is probably stronger there too. The intelligence grid, the human grid particularly, human intelligence grid, has been very, very energetic all these years. And it has helped us, therefore, to target terrorists over a period of the last 4-5 years in particular. In fact, I would go as far back as 2018 when Operation All Out started. And All Out was not just focusing on terrorists. It was a focus on the whole concept of terrorism, all the networks which enable terrorism. This has not obviously been done in the Jammu division because it was not really required at that time. The Jammu division has been quiet over the last 10-15 years, and it's only in the last 2 years in particular that there has been an upsurge here. So obviously we need that kind of an energy which was exhibited in the Kashmir Valley also in this area. The last point on this which is important, there has been a reduction in troop density here over a period of time. Because the terrorist threat here in the 2005 to 2008-10 used to be intense, and we had lots of formations from Eastern Command which had come here at that time. They all have gone back. Recently, some troops from here have been lifted and sent to Ladakh. Although my interaction with the troop commanders on ground tells me that a lot of reinforcements have been sent in here and the grid is absolutely intact. But nevertheless, you need far great synchronization between the Army, the CRPF, the BSF in this case, which is manning the international border, and all the other agencies, because they need to get their act together as much as the manner in which it happened in the Srinagar Valley.
Yes, we'll build on that point in a bit, but building on what you had said in your first answer, the Home Ministry's press release also mentions quote-unquote innovative means to crack down on terrorists. What are some of those that can be deployed in Jammu specifically?
What normally happens in this area is a revisit of historical events. Every 5 to 8 years, almost a repetition of what has happened in the past comes in. Unfortunately, what happens is officials have moved on. People have, who have operated here, who have been very experienced here, have gone on promotions to other places, etc. As a result, institutional memory is usually shot. So we need to ensure this institutional memory is restored. And that is actually virtually an innovative thing. For example, I can tell you that in 2003, we had Operation Sarp Vinash up in the mountains of Pir Panjal in a place called Helkaka, where a large number of terrorists were holed up. And this was a large-scale operation conducted in what is the typical army mode of what is called jungle bashing, which is prophylactic operations in the jungles. And that led to the killing of almost 50 to 60 terrorists on both sides of the Pir Panjal. Now we'll have to look at something like this. To do that, Innovative measures were used in 2003 where helipads were constructed in the higher altitude areas so that troops could be sustained there for longer periods. Otherwise, troops have to come down for their logistics over a period of time every 3 or 4 days. To ensure continuation of operations, these helipads were created there and many other means of logistics were also ensured. These are the kind of innovative things. Of course, human intelligence is the thing which is always something which is necessary, and an outreach to the people through different measures ensures that you have enough human intelligence. Today, you have a lot of technical intelligence which is available, and therefore efforts should be made to garner that also.
Also, General Hasnain, to build on a point that you had made earlier, how crucial is seamless coordination amongst security agencies to plug any slippages? Does that happen routinely? Is technology leveraged for that?
Yes, you see, besides technology, of course, you also have a very fine system in Jammu and Kashmir which has existed for quite some time, and that is the unified command concept. The unified command concept ensures that at different levels, commanders of different forces frequently get together for exchange of intelligence, coordination of their operations which have been going on, and a larger understanding of how the situation is. Now, at the highest level, normally you have the unified command sometimes meeting with the visit of the Honorable Home Minister or the Honorable Raksha Mantri to either side of the Peer Panjal, either Jammu or Srinagar, and getting together there, all the commanders coming together. In fact, the meeting which you are seeing as here in Delhi is virtually like a national level unified command. Now, this is replicated right to the bottom, to the level of the unit and the sectors. And this is a very, very effective way of doing it. Besides the technological aspect, of course, the feasibility of employing drones, although there is a great challenge here that there is so much of foliage, so much of broken ground on the Peer Panjal that even penetration, energy penetration into the areas from drones becomes extremely difficult. Satellite coverage is the other thing which is very, very important. These two aspects should be looked into very, very deeply because these are the actual force multipliers as far as technologies are concerned.
General Hasnain, the government release also says that the fight against terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir is in its decisive phase. It says that recent incidents show that terrorism has been forced to shrink from highly organized acts of terrorist violence to a mere proxy war today. We also saw the high voter turnout in J&K recently. Is all of this a major achievement in itself, and do you see India building on this?
You see, the success of the elections is itself a reflection. I have served in Jammu and Kashmir for the better part of the 22 years, and I can tell you that I have seen 5 or 6 elections. We used to be quite satisfied if you got a 20% turnout or 15 to 20% turnout. But this time, a place like Baramulla, which is supposedly in belief by most very, very separatist in its ideology, had a 58% turnout. The average has been 54% turnout, which is I would still say there is scope for even a better turnout in the future, and that's going to happen in the assembly elections. Because traditionally the assembly elections are bread and butter elections. And you will find that efforts by the terrorists may be there, but the people of Kashmir or people of Jammu and Kashmir themselves resist such efforts. And we will probably witness this happening in the near future. We have also got the Sri Amarnath Yatra starting in the next few days. The success and ensuring an incident-free Yatra is an imperative for all of us because that demonstrates our capability and our intent very, very clearly to the other side, to those sponsors of proxy war.
Yes, in sum, General Hasnain, for the benefit of the viewers, if you could summarize what should be, according to you, the top 3 priorities for the security agencies, particularly in Jammu region.
See, in the Jammu region particularly, I would say a control on infiltration to the international border, ratcheting up the human intelligence capability by a comprehensive outreach to the Gujar population in the Pir Panjal area, extending right up to Riyasi and beyond. In fact, it should go right up to Patwa, this entire engagement effort. And last of all, the importance of prophylactic operations to displace any terrorist hideouts from where these 25 or 30 terrorists at the moment seem to be functioning. This has been effectively done in the past whenever we have come across such obstacles, when we have found that terrorists are having a heyday coming out from hideouts in the higher mountains. These mountains and forests have always been addressed in the past. That's exactly what needs to be repeated now.
That's a very incisive and productive analysis. Thank you so much, General Hasnain, for joining us on DD India with your views. Let's move on. The Vice President of India and Chairman of Rajya Sabha, Jagdeep Dhankhar, inaugurated the newly constructed Prerna Sthal at the Parliament House complex today. The Sthal houses the statues of India's eminent leaders and freedom fighters that were previously dispersed across different places in the Parliament House complex. The initiative is aimed at enhancing visitor experience through easier access and use of modern technology such as QR codes to narrate the life stories of these inspiring figures of Indian history. Describing the occasion as motivational and memorable, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankhar said that he never imagined in his life that he would get such an opportunity to honor our great leaders in this manner. He expressed confidence that all citizens who would visit this Prerna Sthal will get energized and motivated through the inspiring stories. After the unveiling of the plaque at Prerna Sthal, the Vice President along with other dignitaries offered floral tributes to all statues at the Sthal. The Speaker of Lok Sabha, Om Birla, Deputy Chairman of Rajya Sabha, Dr. Harivansh, several union ministers including Ashwini Vaishnav, Kiran Rijiju, Arjun Ram Meghwal were present on the occasion.
ये ऐसा स्थान है जो हर भारतीय के लिए तीर्थ स्थल से कम नहीं होगा। इस सोच को मैं बहुत ही प्रशंसनीय कार्य मानता हूँ। एक जगह महापुरुषों का दर्शन हो जाए, उनके विचार, उनका व्यक्तित्व कितना हमें प्रभावित कर सकता है, ये मैंने आकर यहाँ देखा है। हमारे महापुरुषों की जितनी कदर हम करें वो कम है। आज का दिन उसी कड़ी के अंदर प्रेरणादायक भी है, सदा यादगार भी रहेगा।
Still to come on DD India News Hour. England, one of the favourites to win Euro 2024, will kick off their campaign against Serbia tonight. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour with me, Munmun Bhattacharya. Polling officials have rejected allegations made against the electronic voting machines. Dismissing the claims made, Mumbai Suburban District Collector Vandana Suryavanshi has said that an EVM is a stand-alone system that does not need an OTP to unlock it.
EVM ये एक स्टैंड अलोन डिवाइस है, उसमें कोई वायर्ड और वायरलेस कम्युनिकेशन का कोई प्रोविजन है ही नहीं। तो जो ये जो न्यूज है वो गलत न्यूज है और किसी भी आधारहीन न्यूज है without any verification. In fact, other day some reporter from India, I think the same one, I tried explaining him that it is no way related. कि मोबाइल से कुछ नहीं होता है, जो काउंटिंग प्रोसीजर होता है वो रिजल्ट सेक्शन में प्रेस जो बटन होता है रिजल्ट बटन वो प्रेस करने के बाद ही डिस्प्ले होता है और वो फोल्डिंग को जब ईवीएम सील होता है तो पोलिंग एजेंट्स भी होते हैं और काउंटिंग के दिन भी जब रिजल्ट सेक्शन प्रेस होता है काउंटिंग एजेंट्स होते हैं। तो इलेक्शन कमीशन की अपनी एक प्रोसीजर है, सेट सिस्टम ऑफ प्रोसीजर है, प्रोटोकॉल्स है, वो पूरी तरह से फॉलो करके ही ये काउंटिंग हुआ है।
And now all the updates from the 18th edition of the Mumbai International Film Festival. The first ever documentary film bazaar inaugurated on day 2 of the 18th edition of the Mumbai International Film Festival. DD India correspondent Shama Mishra gives us a flavor of all the action from MIF, the one place where the audience can get to see documentaries, short fiction and animation films.
A celebration of the spirit of Indian documentaries at full display at the 18th edition of Mumbai International Film Festival. The Documentary Film Bazaar aims to give a boost to the thriving documentaries by providing a unique platform for filmmakers to connect with buyers, sponsors and collaborators.
Major cinema company, it is a state-run company in our country. It was founded 100 years back in 1924. So today, this year, we are celebrating 100 years of its activity.
We have 5-6 films in MIFF, documentary films, and a director from Iran has also come, Mohammad Kiryandish. He will also be in the panel discussion. His film is Dolphin Boy. So we are actually representing the culture and the tourism of Iran.
16 projects at development stage were showcased as part of Doc Bazaar co-production market with an aim to connect filmmakers with potential collaborators, producers, co-producers and financiers from around the globe.
It's a great platform for documentary filmmakers to get an opportunity to meet co-producers and investors and OTTs and all who can sort of come in and take this movie to take all of their projects to the next level.
The edition received 840 submissions, out of which 77 films are contesting in the national competition. A remarkable 30 films by debutant directors and 12 student works have found their place among the contestants. There are categories including national documentary, short fiction and animation, Indian Amrit Kaal, in which the films are competing.
It's a very beautiful way to get to know the country, to see what are the people busy with, what are they thinking about, what are they making the films about. And it's actually a very beautiful way to dive into this place. And
I think especially we're doing the documentaries, a lot of the documentaries, but also in fiction, it's very important to have the issues that have to be dealt with in society and to bring them on the screen and to reflect what's going on in the society.
There are films under special country focus packages, Divyangjan packaged films, selected packages of films on wildlife, mission life and films by Asian women filmmakers and more at the 18th edition.
With camera person Gaurav Kagra, this is Shama Mishra for DD India, Mumbai.
DD India's Shama Mishra also had an exclusive conversation with eminent filmmaker Shyam Benegal. He praised the films and documentaries at the film festival and lauded the youth for making such movies. Take a listen.
The great filmmaker Shyam Benegal is here with us. Sir, congratulations on Manthan, and we saw it at Cannes Film Festival, the revived category rather. You are here at MIF. How do you see this as a platform? This is because especially for documentaries and filmmakers.
The most important thing is I'm very impressed with the quality of the short films. And it was an eye-opener because short films and documentaries were always looked down upon for many years. But suddenly, when I saw this, I said, my God, the quality of films that are being made by our youth, young people, excellent. That's my answer to your question.
Okay. Since you've already mentioned, there are some great movies that you've seen, and I'm sure there are a lot more that you've not seen. The right kind of platform, and Doc Bazaar is one place where the talk of business happens, and then they can actually make that thing happen to reach to people. How do you see Doc Bazaar? And this is the first of kind happening at MIF?
Well, you know, I mean, we have only one problem. There no kind of set of cinemas where you can see films of this kind on a regular basis, you know, because that would help the filmmakers to also get part of the revenue. You know, now what it becomes a one-way street. You know, you have to get money from somewhere, make the film, nobody is sure, particularly when you want to make short films. They'll all say, where will you show?
No, exactly.
How will you recover the cost of the film? You know, that's a big problem. And that's why, under these very trying circumstances, to see the quality of films that I saw today is quite amazing.
Some weather-related updates now, as the northern states of India are grappling with the heat wave, while eastern states are facing heavy rainfall and landslides. Similar extreme weather patterns are observed across the world. The next report gets you more.
Countries across the world are facing extreme weather patterns due to climate change. Conditions of severe heat wave, flash floods, landslides, droughts are becoming more frequent than ever. India's Met Office has issued an orange alert as Delhi sizzles at 46 degrees Celsius with heat wave conditions. 9 lives have been lost so far, with over 2,000 tourists stranded.
I am facing many difficulties because I have to work in the field. The summer winds are blazing hot and even my motorbike seat is burning. It is only our compulsion to get out of our homes in such weather.
Several parts of Assam, Sikkim and West Bengal states received heavy to extremely heavy rainfall on Sunday, and IMD has predicted more rainfall on June 20. In US, flood and tornado watches continue across Florida, creating hazardous conditions. The city of Sarasota experienced a record-breaking downpour, and other parts of the state were similarly affected. State of emergency has already been declared for several countries in South Florida.
Two right over there, and then noticed how flooded the street was, didn't want to risk it, so I left my truck there and then walked home, and pretty much closer when I got to my house, it came all the way to my knees.
Oh wow.
So luckily it didn't come in, but right up against the house. I got waterfront property now.
In China, several parts are struggling with the impact of extreme weather, bringing severe flooding to southern areas, while further north sizzles with extreme heat, compelling authorities to issue an alert for high temperatures in multiple regions. The extreme weather conditions around the world point to the urgent need to think about climate change and take immediate action to mitigate its effects. Bureau Report, DD India.
Sports news now. England kickstart the UEFA Euro 2024 campaign with the opener against Serbia tonight. England are better team on paper and hold the upper hand against Serbia going into this game. England finished at the top of the Group C at the Euro qualification standings and have been in great form over the past year. England coach Gareth Southgate have plenty to prove and will certainly dream of taking the team a step further than he did in the last edition of the Euros. The penalty shootout had heartache, in fact, against Italy on home soil is still strongly felt in many corners of the country. That's it in this edition of DD India News Hour, but do share your thoughts with us on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Munun Bhattacharya from all of us in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live. Namaskar.